Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another video. I have been on a short hiatus, but I'm happy to be back again tonight. Happy Sunday. It was an exciting day for me. It was my son's 6th birthday, and we had a celebration at the park, which was a lot of fun. Then we went to the swimming pool, and it was just a very good day. Prior to that, I actually went on a short vacation to celebrate another friend's birthday in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and that was just an excellent time as well. So I had some vacation, some birthday, and now I feel refreshed, ready to start the week. And I figured I'd close out this week with another lab. While I was on vacation, I had some time in flight and a bit of time on the beach to do some studying about OSPF. OSPF being another routing protocol, the open shortest path first, based on Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm. And I am not sure, but I'm thinking I might be ready to do this lab. Haven't done it before. If you're looking at it, it is Jeremy IT Labs Day 1 OSPF lab. So seeing it for the first time here looks complicated, and I haven't configured OSPF on anything yet. So this will be the first time I'm going to try to hack my way through it, and we'll see how far we get and what we can learn. So again, OSPF is a routing protocol, and that means, something that's going to determine the best route from one router to the next to eventually the destination, the shortest path between a series of routers. So that's what we see here. We've got ISPR R1, like internet service provider, it looks like. So this is going to be an outside network coming into what appears to be our OSPF area 0, our internal network. We got 4 routers, and we hook up to a switch and a host. So let's get started. Just kind of looking at some other data here. We've got some subnets depicted, some IP addresses that look like are depicted, the actual interface IDs, fast internet, whatever IDs depicted, gigabit, etc. All right, and we are told about an OSPF area 0 already. So if you've studied OSPF, this would be the backbone area. And this is the one you're responsible for configuring for the CCNA. So keep that in mind as we go through this. First things first. So configure the appropriate host names and IP addresses on each device. Enable router interfaces. You don't have to configure ISPR 1. All right, so we don't have to configure ISPR 1. Let's start with router 1. We need to configure a host name and an IP address. This is in 10.0.13.0/30, and it's .1. So that'll be 10.0.13.1. And it's a /30. So I need to think about that in a second here. So we do en conf t. And what interface do we want to configure? We want to first we want to configure F10. Let's start there. It's got 2 interfaces that we actually need to configure. So F10. So interface fast Ethernet 1.0. All right, and then IP address, and this is going to be 10.0.13.1, and it's 255.255.255. Now, what is /30? Actually, that's a good question. I could just Google it, but I need to figure this out. All right, so 30. So that's 24 plus 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 255 minus 3, and that's 252. So let me just confirm that. I'm going to just go to Google real quick and see what's like the mask equivalent. Let's see, mask equivalent of /30. And that is correct. It's 252. So good thing I got that right. It took me a little while, so I need to get better at that when it's not just a /24, which is typically what I'm used to. All right, IP address, blah, blah, blah. All right, and then also, let's go ahead and do the other one. We are going to do the gigabit 00, so I'm going to say interface. Maybe I can't do that from here. Exit interface gigabit O/O IP address, and this is going to be 10.0.12.1, and it's again a /30, 255.255.255.252. All right, and so those are the two IP addresses that we need to configure for each of the interfaces. Now let's exit and we'll do host name, and we'll call this router 1. All right, so we've done that for the first device. Configure the appropriate host names and IP addresses on each device. Enable router interfaces. Do I need to enable these? Let's try it and see what happens. So interface fast Ethernet 1/0 no shut, and it was down, so it's a good thing we did that. All right, so exit interface gigabit, what is it, 0.0, 0/0, I don't know why I keep saying dot, 0/0, yes, /0 no shut. All right, and so I think that means that router 1 is done. Host names, IP address on each device, enable router interfaces. All right, so we're going to move on to router 2, or this router 3, whatever. Okay, router 2, CLI, turn, conf t, I'll say host name, router 2, interface, which interfaces are we doing now? G00, 10.0.12.2, and it's a /30. So let's see, gigabit 00, what did I press? Gigabit 00, IP address, what is it? 10.0.12.2, 10.0.12.2, 255.255.255.252, no shut. All right, and now that was a gigabit, and now what's the other one? The F10, and that's going to be 10.0.24.1. Interface SF10, IP address 10.0.24.1, I think is what I said. 10.0.24.1, yes, F10. And it's a /30. 255.255.255.252. No shut to enable the line. Change its state to up. All right, so I think that might be it for router 2. So we did the host name and both IP addresses, and we enabled the interfaces. All right, so that's, I think, good. I'll just go in order. So router 3, same thing. In this case, we're going to do F10 is 10.0.13.2. All right, so I'm going to say host, now I'm going to do enable conf t, host name, router 3, interface, I just already forgot, F10, fast Ethernet 1/0, and we're going to do 10.0.13, 10.0 IP address. IP address 10.0.13.2, 255.255.255.252 for a /30, and no shut. Sweet, that's going, and I already see the little green flashing arrows, so I like that aspect of Packet Tracer. All right, exit interface fast Ethernet 2/0. And that's going to be IP address 10.0.34.1, 255.255.255.252. Good. No shut. All right, and exit out of that. I think that's everything, and it's got router 3 as the host name. All right, so we're now to router 4. CLI, enable, blah, blah, blah. All right, so en conf t hostname router 4 interface f2/0. That's going to be IP address 10.0.34.2 255.255.255.252. Good. No shut. And let's see if it all comes up. It looks like it does. All right, and finally, exit interface F. It's actually got 3 interfaces to configure. F10, interface F10, IP address 10.0.24.2, and that's a 255.255.255.252. Is that right? F10, yes. 10.0.24.2, yes, that's correct. All right, no shut. All right, so you got green flashy arrows, like some connectivity between the square there. All right, and now we need to hook up, I guess, does the switch get an IP address? I don't really know. And does this thing need one? I guess the switch maybe does not. No. I think we need to set it up on the PC though. So let's do that. So we are in desktop, and the PC's thing is going to be 192.168.4.1, and it's a /24 subnet. All right, 192.168.4.1. So command prompt. No, that's not right. Config fast Ethernet. IP4, yeah, okay. PC1 IP4 192.168.4.1. 168.4.1, and it should just default to a /24, which it is. All right, so this PC now has an IP address. So now I wonder, can I ping the PC from router 4? I'm just curious. Should I be able to? I think so. Exit. So do ping 192.168.4.1. And no, it's not working, but I'm not sure if I should expect it to, because it probably has no route to that PC, which is the whole point of this. So do show IP route. So it does have a directly connected routes. Gateway of last resort is not set. And so it doesn't have a direct route to any of the PC. So did I do that IP address though for the third one? I don't remember. Because look, it's .254. I don't recall doing that. Let me just do that real quick. So interface gigabit 0/0. What is the issue? Interface gigabit 0/0. Oh, slash. So the G00, is it .254? It must be on this subnet as well. .254 and .1. All right, so first and last, basically, addresses. So this is going to be IP address 192.168.4.254.254, and it's a /24. And I'll say no shut. All right, so now it does have, I think, connectivity through the switch, maybe to the PC. So let me try to ping the PC again. Exit. Do ping. Should be up here. Actually, you know what? I should do this. Now, will it send one packet to the switch and then actually hit the ping? No. All right, so, oh, that's weird. It got one at the end. I don't know why. Okay, so it has connectivity. I can ping that thing. It's on the same subnet, so that all makes sense. All right. Okay, well, so I think that first part is done. Configure the appropriate host names and IP addresses on each device. Enable router interfaces, which we did. Configure a loopback interface on each router. Okay, I'll do that in a moment. But I am curious, can I ping the PC from this other router that doesn't have a directly connected line to the switch to that PC on the same subnet? So on a different subnet, I don't think I should be able to until some routing protocol or static routes are placed in the routing tables of these 4 routers. And that's the whole point. So let me just confirm that. I want to make sure I cannot ping the PC from here. All right, and again, it's 192.168.4.1. So we're going to say do ping 192.168.4.1, and I would expect this to fail. Yeah. All right, so that's as expected, I think. So configure a loopback interface on each router. 1111 for router 1, 2222 for router 2, 3333, and 4444. All right, so here we are, loopback. I think we want to go here. Interface loopback 1. So loopback 1 for router 1, loopback 2 for router 2, 3, and 4, I guess. All right, so router 1, okay, and IP address 1.1.1, and they said that the mask for that is a /32. So I think it's 32.254. So 32 is 24 plus 6, 7, 8. It's like 255. I guess it's a single address. There's nothing more specific, right? Mask equivalent of a 32 is at 255. Yes. All right. So it's only for a single address. That makes sense. Okay. So 255.255.255.255. That's a /32. All right. And no shut, although I don't think that's necessary. All right. So router 1, configure a loopback on each router. So that's router 1. Router 2. And it has host name router 2. That's good. Okay. So exit, and this is going to be interface loopback 2. And we're going to say IP address 2.2.2.2, 255.255.255.255. No shut. Router 3. Interface loopback 3. IP address 3.3.3.3, 255.255.255.255. And yeah, I don't think I need to do the no shut thing. All right, and router 4. I'm going to say interface loopback 4. IP address 4.4.4.4, 255.255.255.255 for a /32. All right, I think part 2 is done. Configure a loopback interface on each router, blah, blah, blah. All right, so we did 1, 2, 3, and 4, loopback interfaces. All right, now configure OSPF on each router. Enable OSPF on each interface, including loopback interfaces. Do not enable OSPF on R1's internet link, the G30 link there. Configure passive interfaces where appropriate, including loopback interfaces. All right, so let's start with router 1. Configure OSPF on each router. So I'm going to get out of interface configuration mode, and from here, I'm going to go router configuration mode, and let's see what I have. Okay, so pressing question mark, we can see OSPF. All right, now process ID, I think this can be anything. I'm just gonna say 1. What's after that? All right, so router OSPF 1. Enter. So now I'm in OSPF configuration mode, I think. Okay, so we want to do the network. So configure OSPF on each router. So we need to enable the network, and we need to basically enable it to include the addresses that, of the subnets, or the subnets that router 1 is seeing or can see or is connected to. So 10.0.12 slash 10.0.12, 10.0.13. So we could just do like a /24, because that would encompass everything, 10.0.12 and 10.0.13. Maybe we could be more specific, but I think that makes sense. I think. So if it doesn't seem to make sense to you, please make a comment. And thanks to everybody who has commented and kind of just come and become a subscriber. It's cool to see this little growing community and to get some feedback, and I've been learning some stuff. I'm going to be using some commands that people have talked about, and there's a handful of things people have mentioned that I'm going to be focusing on going forward. So thank you for that. All right, so I want to do network, and now what do we need? We need a network number. Well, yeah, okay, so 10.0 dot, I think we want to do 10.0.0.0 to incorporate the whatever's in the third octet. And then we would call this, for wildcard bits, O.0.255.255. And it needs to an OSPF area ID, which is 0, because again, this is the backbone area. All right, so let's see. I think that should work. Invalid marker. So it says the area ID. OSPF area ID. Do I need to say area? Oh, I do. Area. All right, and then it needs a 0. Question mark? Nothing. All right, so this router will enable, or has enabled, this command will enable OSPF on all networks matching 10.0 and then wildcard of /16 for area 0. All right, let's go with that for now. All right, so it's enabled on router 1 on each interface, including loopback interfaces. Now, this I'm not really sure about. So passive interface, network, neighbor, log, distance, default information, auto cost, area, no, passive interface, okay, router ID, blah, blah, blah. I'm just curious, default information, distribute a default route. That comes up at the end, and I don't think that's enabling it on the interface. So it says enable OSPF on each interface, including the loopback interfaces. So I'm just curious if I Google how to enable OSPF on loopback interface. Assign an IP address, okay. Enable ISPF network point-to-point command to configure loopback interface, blah, blah, blah. Include the loopback interface in the OSPF process. This ensures that blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right, and then how about just enable OSPF on an interface, just in general. I'll do CCNA just to make it more specific. To enable OSPF on a specific interface, you use IP OSPF area command in the interface configuration mode, specifying the OSPF process ID and the area ID. This allows OSPF to operate on that interface. Oh, I see. Configure, you go into the interface, say the process ID 1, area 0, end. All right, well, that's doable. All right, so we want to enable OSPF. So it's running on the router, but it needs to be then enabled on each interface, I guess. So let's go to interface F10. So we'll exit out of this. Interface fast Ethernet 1/0. And then we're going to say IP OSPF question mark. Process ID 1 question mark. Area question mark 0. I think that's all. Authentication key, cost, dead interval, hello interval, network type, router priority. All right, so, all right, I think that has done it on F10. Now let's do G00. Exit, interface G00. And that is going to be IP OSPF 1 area 0. All right. So now I'm curious. All right, enable it on. Do not do it on R1s. That thing. Okay. Configure passive interfaces where appropriate, including the loopback interfaces. So I am supposed to enable OSPF on the loopback interface. So let's do that. Interface loopback 1. This is router 1, yes. IP OSPF process, what is it? ISPF OSPF 1 area 0. All right, and so I've enabled it on the loopback interface. Each interface, well, I do not configure passive interfaces where appropriate. So I guess all of the loopback interfaces are passive. So let's see if what I've got here. IP OSPF. Now for this one, we want to make it a passive interface. And let's see, is that possible here? Authentication cost, message digest key. Let's see. Maybe it's from router OSPF configuration. So if I say router OSPF question mark 1 question mark. Oh, there we go. Passive interface. Fast Ethernet. What do I want to make? Oh, loopback. Loopback 1. Question mark, yes, 1. All right, I think that's done. So we've done configure passive interfaces where appropriate, including the loopback interfaces. So the only one among these I think that's not, other than like all of them are going to have a loopback interface that we're going to make passive. But then also, I think the G00 coming out of R4 is also going to become a passive interface. Because this link here to the ISPR, the Internet Service Provider, wasn't configured, I wonder if it needs to be a passive interface. I would think so. Maybe I'll just do that, but I'm not sure. All right, so I think that's it for router 1. Now, I'm curious what router 1... So if I do exit out of this, wait a minute, no, I don't want to do that. No, I'm going to just see what's in here real quick. Passive interface, log adjacency changes, exit distance, default information, auto cost and area. Okay. Do show IP OSPF question mark. All right, well, there we go. Routing process OSPF 1 with ID 1111. Show IP, let's do brief. That doesn't work. IP neighbors. See, sometimes I feel like if I use the do command, it's not really like that reliable on the command line for some reason. But I don't know, I could be wrong. So show IP OSPF neighbor. Detail. So I have no OSPF neighbors, which I think makes sense. So let's configure another one and see if one is generated. A neighbor is generated. So let's say R1's done. All right, so I'm going to do R2, and then I feel like a neighborship should develop between these two once I turn on OSPF on the router, again, like we just did on router 1, and also enable it on the G00 interface. So let's do that. Whew, I need a drink. All right, so en conf t. So for router 2, we're going to say router OSPF process ID 1 question mark. No, yes. All right, and we're going to just look at the question mark because I don't remember what I'm doing. Network. And so for this one, again, I think it's to capture everything up through the second octet, and then it's variable in the third octet. So I think that means we need to like say 10.0.0.0 and specify via the wildcard that the final two octets are wide open. I think that's appropriate. Is there anything after that? Area, and we need to begin set the area, which is 0. All right, so then I'll exit out of that and I'll go to interface 00, and I'm going to say IP OSPF question mark. Okay, look, it created the neighborship. You can see the log message here, so that's a good thing. So that was, it says I'm supposed to enable it on all the interfaces, but maybe doing it at the router level just like that already does that, because I was expecting I would need to specifically enable it on this interface before the neighborship would develop, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So regardless, IP OSPF process. All right, so let's see, IP OSPF 1 area 0. All right, and I think that's that. Okay, so now if I exit out of this and I exit out of this and I say show IP OSPF neighbor detail, neighbor with neighbor 1111 interface address 10.0.12.1 10.0.12.1. Okay, which is this here. I don't really understand yet why. Okay, so DR is 10.0.12.1. BDR is 10.0.12.2. Okay, so I see the normal IP addresses for these. This 1.1.1 is kind of throwing me a little bit, like it has the loopback interface, but I'm not sure why it doesn't have the main IP address, but I'm just not fully understanding it yet. All right, so that seems to be configured. There's a way to like show the neighbors in like a brief table. Show OSPF neighbors, nothing. Show IP OSPF. Show IP, yeah, OSPF. I won't take neighbors. Oh, that's it. Neighbor. Weird. Neighbor ID is 1111. So it's neighbor is the loopback address, which I just think is kind of strange. But maybe that makes sense. All right. So we enabled it on router 2. We enabled it on the GOO interface. And I think we need to do it on the F10 now. So conf t interface F10 IP OSPF process ID, no, IP OSPF 1 area question mark 0. All right, fine. I think that's that. Okay. And I think it should be on the loopback address as well. So if I just do, I wonder if I can say like do show IP OSPF interfaces. See, when I press question mark, if I'm using like the do sort of way, I don't get anything back. So I don't really like that. Area of backbone 0. All right, what am I trying to do right now? The loopback. All right, so let's just look at, first of all, let me do this. Show IP interface brief. Does that say anything about, no, it doesn't. Show IP interface. Gigabit 00. Does it say anything about like OSPF running on it? Broadcast, blah, blah, blah. All right, so what's the loopback? Conf T interface loopback 2 IP OSPF 1 area 0. All right, so I think that's done. Let's do 3. There's no passive interfaces on other than, yeah, the loopback one, which is just kind of annoying, but okay. Interface, no, what am I doing? Router OSPF question mark 1. And then we need to do passive interface loopback 2. Okay. I think that's for router 2. Enable OSPF. Do not enable OSPF on router 1, blah, blah, blah. Configure passive interfaces where appropriate, including loopback interfaces. Configure ISPF. Okay, OSPF. That's 2. 3. En conf T. What are we doing? We are, you know what? I'm not going to do it at the network or at the router level. Let's try it on an interface first. So interface fast Ethernet 1 0. We're going to say IP OSPF process 1 area 0. What happens here? Well, that seemed to do something, maybe. I can't really tell. Because it's enabled, but it's not what network is going to be like hooked into. So I thought it was going to give me an error or something. Okay, so there's a neighbor that it made. That's interesting. But still, as far as the routes go, it needs to know what subnets it can hook into or something, I think. So let's see. Router OSPF 1. And then we're going to say network. And now this one needs to capture 10.0.34 and 10.0.13. So same thing. 10.0.0.0.255.255. So basically a /16. And that's area 0. All right. So that's done there. It needs to be now enabled on F10 and F20, which already did F10. So exit interface F20 IP OSPF process ID 1 area 0. I think that enables it. Okay. And then finally the loopback interface loopback. This is router 3. So loopback 3. IP OSPF 1 area 0. All right, we did that, including the loopback, and then we need to set, so router OSPF, question mark 1, passive interface, loopback 3. That's good. All right, no other passive interfaces on router 3. Okay, so exit, show IP route. So we've got a couple routes learned via OSPF, it looks like. All right, so to 1111, 2222, 2.0/32, 1.0/32. All right, well, and a couple others here actually. 10.0.12.0 via 10.0.13.1. Oh, that's pretty cool. So it knows to go that direction. All right, so it seems to be coming together. So that was number 3. We made that. Did I make that a passive interface? Yes. I included the loopback interfaces, not enabled R1's internet link. Okay, I did that. So that's number 3. I'm actually just curious. Do show IP OSPF neighbor. And so it shows a neighbor relationship. 10.0.13.1, which is this router here. Great. All right. And now router 4. So en conf t router OSPF process ID 1 area 0. Wait, nope. All right. Question mark. First of all, we're going to say network 10.0.0.0 0.0.255.255, and I'm just guessing, but I think that's the case. So it's enabled 10.0.34, 10.0.24, even I think I might need to enable it on this G00 using a different network command and then make it passive, I'm pretty sure, so it doesn't send like hellos or whatever. All right, so let's do that. And then I get, oh, and do that, and then what is next? Area 0, question mark. All right. All right, then I think I need to do the same thing again. Network, all right, and it's gonna be this other subnet, 192.168.4.0, and it's a /24, so okay, we got 2 neighbor relationships loaded there. That's good. Network 192.168.4.0, and it's going to be a 0.0.0.255. So a /24 wildcard mask there. All right, so that's that. Oh, and I need to do area 0 again. All right, so now I'm going to do the passive interfaces. So that G00 is a passive interface, and the loopback 4 is a passive interface. So passive interface gigabit 00, passive interface loopback 4. And just to make sure, I needed to do exit interface loopback 4. I need to go into loopback 4, and I think this is just doing double work. It's probably not necessary, but IP OSPF process ID 1 area 0. Okay, so configure OSPF on each router. Enable OSPF on each interface, including loopback interfaces, yes. Do not enable it on R1's internet link. Okay. Configure passive interfaces where appropriate. All right. So now, the only thing I'm not sure in that, it says do not enable OSPF on R1's internet link. And I think maybe if by doing it at the router level, I may have actually inadvertently done that. So I want to figure out how to see if OSPF is running on an interface. I need to Google that. How to see if OSPF is running on a specific interface, CCNA. We can say, show IP OSPF interface. What? I didn't even think, I tried to do that a second ago. En conf t, no, actually I know what that. Show IP OSPF interface. Can I do brief? Yes. So the question was, is OSPF running on router 1 on interface G30? And the answer is no, it's not. So maybe I did actually have to enable it on each of them the way that I did. That's good to know. All right, so that's done. I didn't break the rule. Do not enable it on R1's internet link. Okay, so that's good. Configure R1 as an ASBR that advertises a default route into the OSPF domain. So ASBR, I think that's Autonomous System Border Router. It's basically the router that goes like to the outside of the OSPF area. So let's do that. Now, how? Default route. I do remember this. Conf t router OSPF question mark 1 question mark. Okay. And there's stuff in here. And I think it's default information. So we say default information originate. So it distribute a default route. All right. So then what does it want from me in this? Is that it? So configure R1. Now check the routing tables of R2, 3, and 4. What default routes were added? I should have done that before I did what I just did. So anyway, let's check. It's all looking good, I think. Exit. So we do show IP route. All right, so what routes were added? So we have a route to 1111, 2222. I'm just looking at, okay, that's interesting. There's more. So I've learned via OSPF, actually, can I do IP route OSPF? Question mark, 1, question mark. So this is just what I've learned via OSPF for this process 1 ID. Let's look at what it can get to now. So router 1 can get to 192.168, 10.0.12, it can get that way via 10.0.13.1. 10.0.24 via 10.0.34.2. Interesting. 192.168.4.0 via 10.0.34.2. All right, so that's got a path over to this area. All right. Check the routing tables of R2, R3, and R4. What default routes were added? CCNA, how to check for default routes. Like, what does a default route look like? Show IP route, including default routes. A default route will be marked with an asterisk before the route type example, S for static, O for OSPF. All right, so I don't see anything with an asterisk though. Am I not seeing that? I don't know why. Let me look at a couple others. Router 2. Enable conf t. We'll do show IP route. And again, nothing with an asterisk. So routes learned via OSPF, but nothing with an asterisk. So no default route added. So I wonder if I did that wrong. I don't know. Configure R1, oops, as an ASBR. Oh, shoot. Command Z. Okay. As an ASBR that advertises a default route into the domain. So let's see. CCNA configure ASBR default route. Okay, so to configure an ASBR to advertise a default route into an OSPF domain, you use the default information originate command within the router OSPF configuration, which I did, default information originate. If the ASBR already has a default route in its routing table, you can simply use default information originate. If the ASBR doesn't have a default route, you can use default information originate always to force the advertisement of a default route even without one in the routing table. Interesting. Okay. Well, try that. Information originate. I think that's it. Do show IP route. Well, let's see. Candidate default. I don't see that though. So I'm not sure. So I don't know. I think I'll stop there. Well, first of all, let's see if I can now ping something, right? We learned all these routes. So from router 1, can I ping PC1? PC1 probably needs to have a default gateway set up, which is going to be 192.168.4.254. So let's do that first. Settings, default gateway, 192.168.4.254. 254. Okay, so 192.168.4.254. So now I want to ping 192.168.4.1 from router 1. Ping 192.168.4.1 from router 1. All right, so that worked. So that's a good sign. At least I know that all the routes were learned and a packet made it all the way from sort of the beginning of area 0 right here on this border router through all of these subnets to PC1 and back. So that's a good feeling. Now this question of should router 1 be advertising a default route of some kind, I think it should be, and I don't know if I'm doing that configuration correctly. So what I think I'm going to do, maybe I'll go back and I'll actually watch Jeremy IT guy lab and see how he does it, and then I'll kind of do a follow-up to this, because it's going to be like probably multiple of these videos working through OSPF labs, because there's a ton of them. Jeremy's IT lab has 3. The Cisco CCNA in 60 Days book that we've been going through has a handful. So really going to like drill it home. So I think I'll follow up on a few of those things and then comment on them and kind of finish this up later. But good news is we were able to ping PC1, which again is one setting up a routing protocol, kind of like what we're hoping to achieve. All right. Thank you everyone for hanging out tonight. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone has a good week, and talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.